Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, New St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, Crossing New Frontiers to Conquer Today's Challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, New St. Augustine.
To discover or invent is to make the impossible possible. At age 19, and as a mathematician in training, I solved my equation to get it right. At age 35, I grew to become a polymath that was trained for 16 years, and I solved my equation to not get it wrong. I discovered how to solve the toughest problem in calculus and how to solve it by thinking outside the box and thinking beyond the frontiers of calculus and thinking how to more accurately reformulate that calculus problem from the laws of physics and thinking how to more accurately reformulate that calculus problem to large-scale algebra and thinking how to solve that calculus problem not on an isolated processor but in parallel and across 64 binary thousand processors that were already available in the market anyway. For me, Philip Emeagwali, that unconventional thinking was an epiphany because I discovered that the solution to the toughest problem in calculus transcended calculus. I discovered that trying to solve the toughest problem in calculus and trying to solve that grand challenge problem within only calculus is like seeking a material solution to a spiritual problem or turning to alcohol to mend a broken heart. In the terra incognita of the massively parallel processing supercomputer, only a polymath can make the impossible to compute possible to compute, and do so by solving a multidisciplinary grand challenge problem and experimentally discovering how and why parallel processing makes computers faster and makes supercomputers fastest. Only a polymath can solve that tough problem and solve it alone and present his proof of solution in videotaped lectures that can be watched from any place and any time. It's impossible for a research high-performance supercomputer scientist that is not a polymath, that is not at home in physics, that is not at home in mathematics, and that is not at home in computing to experimentally discover how to solve the initial boundary value problems that are governed by a system of coupled, nonlinear, time-dependent, and state-of-the-art partial differential equations that is the toughest problem in calculus, that are classified as hyperbolic. it's impossible to experimentally discover how to solve that extreme scale problem and how to solve it across a new internet. That is a new global network of 64 binary thousand processors. That is a new supercomputer and a new computer. It's impossible to experimentally discover how to solve those 64 binary thousand initial boundary value problems of modern calculus and how to solve them across a new global network of 65,536 computers that are identical to each other and that are equal distances afar and apart from each other. It's impossible for me, Philip Emeagwali, to experimentally discover their solutions and their times to solutions and to discover them without being at the frontiers of mathematical, scientific, and technological knowledge. It's impossible for me to experimentally discover the new supercomputer and discover it across a new internet that's defined and outlined by 64 binary thousand tightly coupled processors that shared nothing between each other. It's impossible for me to experimentally discover the massively parallel processing supercomputer without foremost mathematically understanding or experimentally discovering how to solve the same initial boundary value problems and how to solve them on only one isolated processor that was not a member of an ensemble of processors. My understanding of the modern fastest parallel processing supercomputer that computes with 10,649,600 processors is deeper and surer than it was 16 years earlier when I programmed the sequential processing supercomputer that computed with only one processor. I programmed sequential processing supercomputers on June 20, 1974, and at age 19. I programmed the sequential processing supercomputer that was at 1800 Southwest Campus Way, Corvallis, Oregon, United States. In 1974, I programmed supercomputers that were powered by only one isolated processor. That processor was not a member of an ensemble of processors. 16 years later, I understood high-performance supercomputers better, and largely because I had experimentally discovered how to massively parallel program the slowest 65,536 tightly coupled processors in the world, and how to harness those processors to cooperatively solve one computation-intensive problem arising in physics and mathematics. The poster boy of computation-intensive problems is the general circulation model that is used to foresee otherwise unforeseeable global warming, or used to foresee parts of the earth that could become horrifically inhospitable for our children's children. On the 4th of July 1989, in Los Alamos, New Mexico, United States, I experimentally discovered a new supercomputer and I discovered how to solve the most computation-intensive problem arising in physics and mathematics. And I discovered how to solve that problem and do so at the fastest possible supercomputer speeds ever recorded. The June 20, 1990 issue of the Wall Street Journal recorded that I, Philip Emeagwali, had experimentally discovered how to use the slowest 65,536 tightly coupled processors that shared nothing between each other that were already available in the market, and how to use those processors to simulate the flow of crude oil and natural gas flowing 1 mile deep and flowing across an oil field, and how to use those processors to simulate the motions of crude oil and natural gas, and how to do so to enable the petroleum geologists to recover otherwise unrecoverable crude oil and natural gas. That excruciatingly detailed supercomputer simulation that I executed via massively parallel processing across a new internet, and that I experimentally discovered or executed by processing a million things at once, is used in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria and used to discover otherwise undiscoverable crude oil and natural gas. My mathematical contributions to the calculus used to simulate the flow of crude oil and natural gas was the cover story of the May 1990 issue of the Siam News. The Siam News is the flagship publication of Siam, and Siam is the acronym for the Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics. The Siam is the #1 society for mathematicians, and the Siam News is where a newsworthy contribution to mathematics is first reported. In the June 1990 issue of Siam News, a research computational mathematician that thoroughly reviewed my mathematical discovery and contributions to mathematics wrote that, and I quote, "I have checked with several reservoir engineers who feel that his calculation is of real importance and very fast. His explicit method not only generates lots of megaflops, but solves problems faster than implicit methods." Emeagwali is the first to have applied a pseudo-time approach in reservoir modeling. End of quote. Once upon a time, in the 1980s to be exact, the mathematics teacher did not know the mathematical steps needed to harness the power of a new internet that is a global network of processors. The reason my contribution to the modern supercomputer that is a new internet was front page news in top mathematics publications such as the Siam News was that I, Philip Emeagwali, was the first computational mathematician to experimentally discover and write down the mathematical steps for how to use a new internet that is a new global network of 64 binary thousand tightly coupled processors that shared nothing between each other. I discovered how to harness that new internet as de facto one cohesive, seamless, high-performance supercomputer that computes in parallel. I discovered how to use that new supercomputer to discover otherwise undiscoverable crude oil and natural gas. Mathematicians use my algorithm to discover and recover otherwise undiscoverable and unrecoverable crude oil and natural gas. Modern extreme scale mathematicians use the new mathematical knowledge that arose from my massively parallel processed communications and computations that were synchronized across my new global network of 65,536 tightly coupled processors that shared nothing between each other and that were already available in the market anyway, and use that mathematical discovery to solve grand challenge problems that are otherwise unsolvable. My quest for the solution to the toughest problem in calculus did not follow a straight line. I made mistakes, but I was open to quick course corrections that took me to the unknown world of parallel processing across a new internet that is a small copy of the global internet that encircles the earth. My new internet is a new global network of 64 binary thousand processors.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.